Sound check.
Yeah, I can hear you just
Great.
fine, thanks.
And then I'll test my video.
Kimberly, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay.
Sounds good. If there's any one of our attendees who is part of an applicant team and you'd like to do a sound check, please raise your hand. So we have Christine Talbot. You should receive a prompt.
Hi, thank you.
Sounds good. If you want to go ahead and mute yourself and then until it's appropriate, then we won't have to go through that prompt every time.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Andy Gustafson. I'm going to give you a 2-minute warning. We'll be starting the zoning administrator meeting shortly. Good afternoon. This is Andy. I'm Andy Gustafson, and this is a special meeting of the Zoning Administrator. Thank you all for attending. Today, we have one item on our agenda, and as provided for in our zoning code, we have these meetings for projects of high priority, such as residential development downtown that we have before us today. This is a Zoom meeting. It will be conducted as a normal public meeting. The only difference being we are participating either by Zoom or by telephone. And I would like to just spend a moment explaining for those of you in attendance for the first time how the meeting will be conducted. As I said, there's one item on the agenda. Everyone will have opportunity to speak. The project planner will give a presentation. The applicant will be invited to add more information or comment. And then after that, the public will be invited to comment. In each case, you'll be asked to be recognized. Those of you participating by Zoom, select the hand icon on your screen and you'll be acknowledged by the hearing secretary. And then you'll need to unmute yourself to comment. Those of you who might be participating by telephone, you press *9, excuse me, and you'll be recognized and be able to comment as well. So with that, I will also say this meeting is being live streamed, recorded. So if any of those of you in attendance wish to watch it afterwards, you can go to YouTube, https://www.youtube.com, City of Santa Rosa, and you'll be able to revisit tonight's proceedings. So with that preliminary introduction, I do want to invite the public who is in attendance to comment on any matter that's not on the agenda. And if you wish to do so, please raise your hand and you'll be recognized prior to commence. And then after that, we'll commence our public hearing. I see no one in attendance who has risen their hand. So with that, let's go forward to our first scheduled agenda item, our only scheduled agenda item for tonight, which is a public hearing on a design review for 431 Humboldt, and the project planner is Adam Ross. Adam, if you could give your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Zoning Administrator. I'm going to share my screen and you'll see it, and then I'll open it up to full screen. So bear with me one second. Do you see that?
Perfect.
Excellent. So thank you, Mr. Zoning Administrator, members of the public. My name is Adam Ross, project planner for the application before you tonight, which is the 425 Humboldt Street Apartments located at 431 Humboldt Street. It is a minor design review subject to the resilient city development measures within the downtown station area specific plan, hence the special zoning administrator meeting at 5 p.m. as the zoning administrator had already explained. The project description, here's just a quick image to get it started off. As you can see, there are it's an 8-story building. It's a 2-tower design. There are sky bridges connecting the 2 towers. You have an internal landscaped courtyard for residents. The Humboldt Street side right here, you have pedestrian only entrances. On the first and second floors, you have office space, non-residential uses, and also uses that are associated with the residential units above, which are in floors 3 through 8. And there are a total of 94 market rate units. There are vehicle access points off the Riley Street side of the project. It touches both Humboldt and Riley Street. As you can see, kind of this concrete bit here. In here are the parking areas. So it is an 8-story mixed use building. I should say specifically mixed use, with 94 residential units, with a breakdown of 5 studio units, 65 1-bedroom units, and 24 2-bedroom units. Again, floors 1 through 2 are mixed use, particularly on the Humboldt Street side, and floors 3 through 8 are the residential units. The project includes an approximate total gross square footage of 136,953 square feet. That internal courtyard I showed you on the 3rd story, which I'll show an image again later, is approximately 4,250 square feet, and there is an 8-floor, 473 square foot roof terrace. The total height is approximately 91 feet tall. That's the topmost point for the building. And that's shown on the elevations, which are as part of the packet here. There are 71 parking spaces, proposed parking spaces. Under the downtown station area specific plan, there is no minimum or maximum parking requirements for new developments. Here's the project location. It includes a lot line adjustment, which would then create this parcel for this site. Right now it's an existing parking lot and a structure to be removed. As you can see here, there's the Humboldt Street side. This is the pedestrian entrance side, and the Riley Street side with only vehicle access entry points here. On the southern portion of the block that it's on, its mid-block, is 5th Street, and on the northern portion is 7th Street. And down here you can see its close proximity to Courthouse Square, which shows that it's right in the core of the downtown area. The general plan and zoning for this site includes core mixed use. That is both the zoning and the general plan designation. In that it also has a floor area ratio, also known as FAR, of 8, which is the max FAR allowed for certain properties in the downtown. It ranges from 4, 6, and 8, and those without FAR in the downtown are typically within historic preservation districts. This project comes in at an FAR of 4.8, which is right above the mid FAR requirement, also found in the zoning code for new development. And the use itself is allowed by right. So the only entitlement here is the minor design review under the Resilient City Development Measures, which is found in section 20-16.060 specifically, which modifies the review authority for certain entitlements. In this case, you would, if it wasn't in a priority development area, such as the downtown station area specific plan, it would be a major design review, where in this case, it is now a minor design review after a concept design review meeting is held with the design review board, which did occur on January 21st of 2021, where the design review board reviews the project at a concept level, and they would provide non-binding comments for any sort of redesign for the project. And these 4 represent the ones that are considerations that were provided. There are others also included in the minutes of that meeting. However, for purposes of being concise, these are the ones that are considerations. The others were more of approval of certain design elements. So one of the considerations is that the pedestrian bridges could be more airy. Another is explore visual design and treatment of the underside of balconies. The next submittal, show the materials of the diamond-shaped shingles, and consider keeping a corner office on the 1st floor. The applicant has provided a response to these comments. which was provided under late correspondence and is included in the agenda packet for this project. Here's a site plan, a proposed site plan. As you can see, the Humboldt Street side and the Riley Street side. So again, this is where the vehicle access would occur, and this is where the pedestrian access would occur. I'm sorry, I believe this is the existing, and then this is the proposed. So as you see here, it's filled out pretty much. So you have, there is the demolition of the existing single-story building, for which it was shown that there is no historic significance of that building, and therefore complies with all the requirements of removal of the building as part of this project. Here's a first floor plan. This is the Humboldt Street side. You have the pedestrian access again over here on the front end. You have two entrances for the vehicle access. So again, so the resilient city development measures, I'm sorry, I should correct myself. Under the new downtown station area specific plan, there are no minimum or maximum parking requirements. And within that determination, the city, within that information, the city has determined that the drive aisles and parking space sizes do not need to comply with normal standards for parking and drive aisle access. So you do see some structural columns here, which reduces the overall turning radius for here. But it is relatively close to that. What we do care about is where it connects to the public right-of-way. One entrance is for the first level only, and you see here's an entrance that goes up to the second floor, which is here, and then it's essentially the same layout for parking. And here is the second floor, which of the non-residential frontage, which includes a mezzanine for an office and some other amenities for the residential units on the upper floors. Here's the third floor plan. Again, this is looking straight down. You have the residential units up here on both tower sides and the internal courtyard right here. There is landscaping. There are features here for use of the future residences, and you also see balconies starting on the third floors. This is the 4th through 7th floor plan. They're essentially the same, and each one has a sky bridge connecting the two towers. The 8th floor has a rooftop terrace over here, which also provides some landscaping as well, which is used by residences of this location. The roof plan shows how the photovoltaic system will fit on it. As you can see, these are what those are. For elevations, I'll lightly touch these and just give you a brief, quick, description of each, and then I will let the applicant design team get into more of the design elements that are provided here. But here is the north elevation, which of the project site. So you see that there are not very many windows, but that is because there is an existing 5-story residential building already in use on this block, the street block. Here is the east elevation, which is the Humboldt Street side. You can see you have glazing for the entrances, as well as the non-residential uses have window glazing and transparency there. Here's the south elevation, where there are existing commercial uses. I believe there are office spaces here and other uses as well that are other commercial uses, I should say. Here's the Riley Street elevation, which is the west elevation with the 2-car access points. right here. This one goes to the second story of parking, and this one is the ground floor of parking. And then you have residential buildings above. You also have some potential photovoltaic going down the side of the building that as part of the design as well. So here's internal elevations for the courtyards. And some more elevations for your consideration. Here's the rooftop terrace. And then here are some 3D elevations. So again, this is from the beginning, but this is the Humboldt side. This is that existing residential building on the north side and the existing commercial uses on the southern sides of the property. This is a view looking, I believe, south. Yes, looking south on Humboldt Street. This is looking northwest up to Humboldt Street, and here's that rooftop terrace. Here's the Riley Street side, looking north. And here are the materials provided, the material board, I should say, which is in electronic form, obviously, which includes, the PV panels, I won't try and mispronounce that, but these are the diagonal shingles, cement plaster wall, painted cement plaster, metal panels, and aluminum canopies, and so on. Here's the conceptual landscape plan, or the preliminary landscape plan, I should say, which is that third story internal courtyard. Here's some street trees that are required, and some of the Riley Street right-of-way improvements proposed with this project site as well. And here is that eighth story rooftop terrace. Or I'm sorry, 8th floor terrace, I shouldn't say rooftop. And here's some more landscape materials provided in the agenda packet that was provided with the submittal of the application. I do want to point out that before I read this slide, there was a response to the Exhibit A, which is the combination of conditions of approval from engineering, fire, water, and environmental compliance, provided by the applicant with red lines. We haven't really looked at that yet, but we would probably need to discuss that for any changes to that. I also have edits to the resolution that was uploaded as part of late correspondence as of 3/23. For this project site, we kept the original one that was posted as part of the agenda, and we will need to discuss those changes. They consist of clarification issues I should say, more administrative, nothing substantial. There's no difference in the description of the project. There's no, it just includes a bit more substantiated information for the second finding, and one finding was erroneously excluded from the one that was originally posted. And obviously I will show that and discuss it whenever it is appropriate during this meeting. And with that, Planning and Economic Development Department recommends that the zoning administrator approve the minor design review permit for the 425 Humboldt Street Apartments project. And again, I'm Adam Ross, the project planner for this, and I'm here to answer any questions. And the applicant team has also submitted a presentation for which I can, whenever you're ready for, I'll gear that up.
Thank you, Adam. I do think it's appropriate that you go through the changes so that everyone in attendance we'll be able to consider and respond to those on the agenda. So if you could take that time now, I'd appreciate that.
I'm sorry, go through which portions? Can you just?
Well, you suggested there were changes to the findings as well as Exhibit A or H, excuse me, Exhibit A.
Sure. I'll start with the resolutions, and I'll show you a side-by-side of both of them. Just give me 1 second, and I will share that. Okay, do you see the two resolutions side by side?
I do.
Format? Okay, great. So on the left, you see the original posted with the agenda, and on the right is the as of 3/23 that has the bits of just slightly missing information, and let me just clarify that. So some of the changes here. So this one says commercial space. This one is just more specific to the office space here for the mixed use portion of the site. We also have the addition of these bullet points, which are the non-binding recommendations that were during the concept design review with the design review board. Those were added here. I went over the 4 recommendations in the presentation. This includes the ones that are, see, lovely project, tastefully done. Those are in here. And then, which is also on the agenda minute, or the minutes from that meeting, which are approved as well. And then, whereas required pre-application meeting, okay, that's the same. Okay, and then we get into just some language clarification here as opposed to here. After, I just added after due consideration of all evidence and reports offered for review does find and determine the following. So that would be in addition to what's here. There was a bit more, just a bit more information about the project description, such as 2-tower design, minimizes shading to surrounding structures and streetscapes, helps identify the residential units above the street level office uses, and incorporates an asymmetrical roof line that complements the downtown core skyline. And some more information about the internal courtyard on the 3rd floor for uses of the residents as it relates to the finding for framework of design review. So those are in response to the framework of design review, which is in the design review guidelines. And the rest, everything in here, everything in this was everything added here is in addition to. This was not removed at all. This was just from about here to here was added in to reinforce that finding. And the reference for mass timber for sustainable materials was added to this finding as well. And then there are certain things just for clarification of writing out 925 rather than just the numbering. Then there was see, and this one is this one here, which has a different, which is just a 1 font size bigger. This is the finding that was erroneously, it was mistakenly excluded from this resolution that was posted on the agenda. So this is one required for a finding required for approval of a design review resolution.
And can you read that, please?
Sure.
For the benefit of the people that haven't seen this updated version.
Yes, the design of the proposed development will provide a desirable environment for its occupants, visiting public, and its neighbors through the appropriate use of materials, texture, and color, and would remain aesthetically appealing and be appropriately maintained in that the ground floor utilizes unique paving and internal planters behind the large glazing on the streetscape that provides aesthetically pleasing human-scaled elements for employees, visitors, and pedestrians. The 94 residential units above include patios for most units, an internal landscape courtyard, and an 8th floor terrace for the use and enjoyment of residents and their guests. Wall cladding and randomly placed vertical metal panels are a warm reddish brown color, while street trees are incorporated to further enhance both pedestrian streetscapes for pedestrians, motorists, and visitors.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other substantive additions or deletions to the findings necessary to act on this matter?
There were two conditions of approval, which clarifies the compliance with the Exhibit A dated March 23rd, which was not included here. And then
Condition number 4, new condition number 4.
yes, condition number 4 is new. And then there's one more that is more, it's inherent in the code, but it was added in just for clarification. So we have 10. There was 2 more like that. So we have comply.
12 and 13.
The commercial linkage fee for inclusionary housing was added, number 10. This project shall be subject to a commercial linkage fee pursuant to City Code Chapter 21-02 inclusionary housing. And that is as it relates to the first floor on the Humboldt side, which is the non-residential portion of the site. And then the number 7, which is the building materials, elevations, and appearances of this project as presented for issuance of a building permit shall be the same as that approved by the zoning administrator. Any future additions, expansions, remodeling, etc., will be subject to review and approval of the director or zoning administrator, depending on the level of change. So that is inherent in the code under resilient city development measures as well, but that was added in just for administrative clarifications. And then that would be it. And then just a little bit of change to how the last sentence is structured. If conditions have not been met, or if work has not commenced within 2 years from approval date, this approval shall automatically expire and be invalid unless an application for extension is filed prior to expiration. So that's standard language that's included on resolutions. And that concludes the changes to the resolution that was provided to the, as is originally provided on the agenda as it was posted. This was provided yesterday as late correspondence and posted to the agenda online for view for the public as well.
And then you said there were Exhibit A. I'll ask the applicants, have they had a chance to review Exhibit A and are in agreement?
Sorry, I could really quick, I could answer that. I know you asked them, but they provided a response to the Exhibit A with corrections and clarifications to some of those conditions of approval.
Okay. All right. So thank you for that. I thought your presentation was complete and thorough in describing the project, its design, the structure, and how it functions on the site. So I appreciate that. Now I'd like to give opportunity for the project team to make their presentation. Adam, if you can help them with their PowerPoint, yeah.
So we're waiting for, I believe, David De Los Santos. I see that Christine Talbot is part of the applicant team. She's here. And then Thomas Robertson and Harold Robinson are part of the applicant team for this.
So if you wish to comment, please raise your hand and you'll be acknowledged and invited to comment.
This is Rob Robinson. I'm not sure if you can hear me,
I can.
but I do have my hand raised. So my name is Rob Robinson, and I'm the president of IGH Partners, and we are the sponsor of the project and the developer. And so I'll start out with a quick introduction about us, and then I'm going to turn it over to the folks over at TLCD. Just a little bit about myself. I actually lived in Santa Rosa for a number of years back in the early 90s and late 80s. My family also, my dad also lived in Santa Rosa, and I helped start the Vineman Triathlon back in those days, and then went on to a career in finance in back east, and moved back here and eventually started a development company, which we had developments in Phoenix and San Francisco and the Midwest. Of those developments, 3 were office spaces, and then we had about 600 units of multifamily. Those, I ended up leaving that firm and started IGH Partners, and this is our first project. And the project was conceived with the help of Tom Robertson, who is my business partner on this. And Tom Robertson, everybody knows him, and he's a great partner, and he's been developing in Santa Rosa for 30 years. So I feel like I'm in good hands. Having said that, he and I started working on this in late 2018. We've spent a lot of time with TLCD and our team, and we're eager to get approval so that we can move on to the permitting process. Our goals, we have a couple of really key goals that we've adhered to throughout the whole process. One is we want to increase the housing in Santa Rosa, and we want to help transform the downtown Santa Rosa, the downtown core. We think that over time, the transformation of Santa Rosa's downtown is going to be very exciting, especially as other infrastructure projects like the freeway and the airport complete their processes. Another big goal for us is that wherever possible, we've put together a local team, whether it's a TLCD or our builders, and all the other professionals involved. And the reason that we thought that was important is because of the transformative nature of what we're trying to do and what Santa Rosa is trying to do. And we want people in Santa Rosa to benefit from the project just like us. So that's a big part of our overall corporate mission. And so far, we've just gotten unbelievable support from the city. So we'd like to thank everybody at the city that's helped this project move along at literally lightning pace. We started the whole entitlement process in late November and early December, and here we are in front of the zoning administration. So that's just been a terrific process for us so far. So thank you. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Appreciate your comments. And if you wish to introduce your other team members, or do the team members want to talk? I see Don Tomasi.
Well, maybe Tom could say a few words, and then we'll pass it on to Don, and he'll go through the presentation. So if Tom, if you're there and you can say a few words, I'm sure everybody would like to hear from you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, well, first of all, again, a thank you to the staff, the colleague. Adam has done a terrific job. We actually didn't file for DR until February 12th, and you do the arithmetic. I don't know that any city or county for other jurisdiction in California has approved anything any more quickly, but it's very, very helpful for us. And we're looking forward to getting the project built. And I know Don Tomasi with PLCD is going to make a presentation. So I can either give this back to Rob, or Don, you could go right ahead with your presentation.
Okay, this is Don Tomasi. Am I on? Can everyone hear me?
You are, yes.
Great, thank you. So thanks. So Don Tomasi, principal of TLCD Architecture. So we're obviously really excited about this project. We've been advocates for downtown housing for a long time. This is a perfect project in that regard. Adam, could you forward the slides to the first of the renderings? I think they follow the elevations. Go, back. You go back, there we go, right there. This is actually one of a couple different buildings in this area that are both the same height, 7 stories and 8, one across the street between Mendocino and Riley, and the other one up in Ross Street, up next to the Press Democrat building. So it's really a part of a larger movement in downtown Santa Rosa to bring in affordable housing. The scheme we initially looked at was a traditional U-shaped building facing south, with the courtyard facing south, but it really cut off the apartment building to the north. And we've actually been working with the owner of that building throughout the design process to make sure that our building is compatible with his and not cut off views any more than necessary and so forth. And so we ended up going to this scheme with 2 towers connected by the sky bridges, and it really lets a lot of light into the south elevations of those apartments, and actually really defines the design of this project too. It makes it really interesting. As Adam mentioned, there's a nice courtyard that's created by this scheme on the 3rd floor that Christine Talbot from Quadriga will speak to in more detail. So next slide. Thank you. So as Adam mentioned, this is looking south from the building I just mentioned that's owned by Hugh Futrell, who we work with. Again, very few buildings, very few windows facing his building, just these corner windows and some very narrow windows at the corridor ends. We have some units with balconies, approximately half of them. The exterior material is a random width standing seam metal. It's sort of in this brownish red color, which we think fits in really nice. We strove to have a very rich palette, and you'll see that more in some of the other schemes. Next slide. This is also in Humboldt looking north, and it probably best describes the project. And the streets are actually fairly narrow given the height of the building, and perhaps the most visible view of this building is from Humboldt looking north, right from this view here. You can see the inside facades of the building are treated differently to provide different characters at the inside courtyard and so forth, using a very rich blue color. And the glue lamp beams that connect the 2 towers. And in one of the comments that came up in the design review was to try to reduce the mass of those bridges, and we'll probably be able to reduce it somewhat. We purposely went with glue lamp beams because this is a mass timber building. And we wanted to express the fact that mass timber is how the building's being constructed. So we're doing everything we can to keep this the sky bridge as open as possible, but we do feel strongly about going with the wood. We've also, because the building is divided from this view and also from looking north on Riley Street into 2 fairly narrow towers, we've been able to treat the units in the stair towers differently. So the stair towers are what you see in sort of that silver color there, which is a diamond-shaped metal shingle. They're about 20 inches square. It's sort of a reference to the nearby residential neighborhood, in particular the Cherry Street neighborhood. And then there's narrow slits that at the end of the corridors that aren't as visible in this rendering, but between that those metal shingles and the reddish brown metal siding and photovoltaic. So it really breaks up the mass of the building quite nicely. And then you'll see that up on the top floor, you'll see again, it's not a roof deck, it's the 8th floor deck. There is no roof deck per se. And there's an amenity room up there for the apartment residents. The entrance has a canopy down on the street. It's meant to be as visible as possible. It's the main entrance into the building. And then another of the comments that was made at the design review board was, wouldn't it be nice if there could be an office on the other side of the building, on the northeast side? And indeed, there is a corner office there. And I think they actually suggested keeping the current tenant there, and the current tenant does have a first right of refusal for that space. So that is exactly what we were thinking as well. And you see up on the roof that the roofs are pitched on both street frontages to give it a little more of a residential character and to allow higher ceilings on the top floor and to really show off the underside of the wood soffit. So behind the lobby, there'll be a 2-story lobby behind that entrance. And then there's a variety of different spaces in there, from an office to an exercise room to a little coffee bar, mailboxes and so forth. And then you don't see the
Don, if I can interrupt here, can I ask Adam to advance the presentation so we can see the floor plans you're speaking of or describing?
You want to go to the first floor plan, which
Thank you.
yeah, there. So the green is a tenant amenity space, and you see the doors in the lower right corner. That's the 2-story space. There's a dramatic wood stairway in that space that goes up to the 2nd floor. And what you're seeing here is office room, workroom, mailboxes, and so forth. And then the reddish space, the reddish brown space above it, is the tenant space for an office space. It's also has a 2-story lobby, and then the rest of it's 2 stories, just like the tenant amenity space. And then if you can go to the next slide, here you see what's in blue is the 2nd floor of the tenant amenity space, restrooms, some storage. Then the largest space in the upper right that's rendered in blue is the exercise room. And you can see how the stair works there. And then similar thing in the tenant improvement space. You have the stair, which is open to below for the 2-story lobby, and the 2nd floor, essentially a mezzanine above. Okay, so this is a typical residential floor with the different units, and I don't have too much to say about these unless you want me to go into them in any detail. But I think.
Can you? There was a comment made in I think Mr. Robinson's presentation, and also in the narrative regarding affordable units. Is the intention to add affordable units in this project to fulfill the inclusionary ordinance requirements?
I think Rob would have to answer that question.
Okay, we can revisit that issue later. Why don't you just continue?
Okay. So if we can go back to the renderings, Adam. Yeah, okay, yeah, go back one, or ahead one, I guess. Yeah, so this is a view looking north on Riley Street, which obviously is a lot narrower than Humboldt, and a similar design. The building does have 2 recesses in the facade to break the mass up. You don't really see it from this extreme angle, but you can see the notches in the roof that divide the building into 3. And this is where the parking garage will be. It'll be a ventilated parking garage. It will have some openings which will be obscured by side obscuring screens, which were originally we were thinking metal, but we're now thinking about the possibility of using scrap timber, heavy timber for the project, which should be really beautiful, a really beautiful Douglas fir wood with a clear finish. Okay, next slide. So the renderings give a better sense of what the finishes are, I think, than this does. But again, we looked at this building as two different towers. It was almost like one building. We pulled it apart into two separate ones, with the interior having a different character than the street facades. And that's a really central concept to this project. And again, we use a different color. We use the blue. We have the sky bridges, and we have the landscape courtyard on the third floor that Christine Talbot will talk about. And from this angle, you see photovoltaic panels that we planned for the roof, as well as the walls. You can see the metal shingles that we're using at the stairways, and then the street facades, including how they wrap back to the stairway, is a random spaced metal standing seam roof with that really rich reddish brown color. And I think that's about it. I think Christine Talbot can take it from here and talk about the various landscape portions of the project.
Thanks, Don. Hi, I'm Christine Talbot from Quadriga Landscape Architecture, and I don't know, I guess we can't really zoom in on this, so I'll try and be descriptive with my words, but the plan that you're looking at shows really the 3 floors of landscape improvements, starting at the ground floor with the streetscapes on both Humboldt and Riley Street. And just as a precursor, when we submitted this plan, we had anticipated providing a richer streetscape on Riley Street, extending the precedent set by Hughes building to the north of widening the sidewalk. And we thought that would be a great opportunity to then include some street trees. And subsequently, we've learned through engineering's comments that the water line is directly under where our trees would go, or within a foot. So it's likely that we won't be able to plant trees on Riley, but we are looking at widening the street to provide more consistent streetscape experience with the northern property, and then the future properties, as they build out to the south. So in this plan, we're showing 3 trees in the streetscape on Riley that likely won't be able to be planted there due to the utilities. But I think, the Riley Street side is more of the parking garage access. I think the intent with the architectural design and probably the pedestrian patterns is going to be with more access from the Humboldt Street side. So we'll focus our attentions on creating that user experience nicer at the street level with street trees, keeping the lower street canopy consistent with the rest of the street, and also for aerial access for fire, creating some special paving areas at the entries to help provide wayfinding for pedestrians and create a richer experience. And then as we move around the building, we have some small setbacks around the building that will include some bioretention area along the north, and then some gated access so people can't get behind the building and create issues. And then we'll provide some privacy fencing along the south property line, and moving, yes, that whole L-shaped, and then creating a gate along the Riley Street south entrance so that there'll be security around the building. Moving to the, thank you, yes. And then we have some imagery of what those gates might look like. We're looking right now at providing kind of a steel frame with the wood, very modern look, keeping with the architectural feel of the building. Moving to the 3rd floor courtyard, which is really a very dynamic space. I think it's going to be, a great amenity for the residents. It provides a lot of functionality as well as aesthetic interest for people living on upper floors. It's enticing. It has this very curvilinear feel, providing these little nook areas for people to gather. We have proposed some fire pit areas and then outdoor seating. And then the planters are dual function. They provide vegetation, but they're also stormwater planters. So they're helping with the stormwater management for the building. And we'll be including some smaller airy trees to help provide some privacy for the residents across from each other and to create a very ethereal feel for the courtyard. The 8th floor, I think Adam discussed a little bit, the terrace. That's really an indoor-outdoor space. There's a lounge inside, and then there's opportunity to move in and out to this outdoor area where we've created just a very flexible space so that people can make it their own with some movable furnishings. We envision a raised planter at the edge to help create that green cascade that you saw in the renderings, and really offset the architectural interest with the wood and the beams that are kind of showcasing that space. We did include some lighting information on this plan. I know that there was a separate packet of lighting fixtures sent, but the intent is really just providing a nice glow for some of these special areas, keeping with the dark sky ordinance and not bothering our neighbors, but creating nice ambient space. We do include a plant list as is typical, and we will meet, all the requirements for water efficient landscape. The planting palette that we've selected is more evergreen with some flowering plants. So we have less perennials. So we don't anticipate a lot of dieback seasonally. It'll be more of an evergreen feel. So it will look nice year round. That's our intent. And the street trees come from the city street tree list. So we'll work with parks on that. But I think, unless you have any specific questions, that's the elements that I wanted to highlight. So I will pass it back to Don if he has any other final comments.
Thank you.
And am I on again? Yeah, so I do not have any further well, I guess I'll add 2 quick things. 2 of the other comments that Adam mentioned from the design review board was to explore the visual design and treatment of the underside of the balconies. At one point, we were hoping that those could be mass timber extended out. It turns out that for structural reasons and for waterproofing reasons, that is not possible. So we'll be using a different material, but we'll definitely be paying attention because we understand the importance of that. It's quite visible from the street. But at this point, we don't know what that material will be. And then there was some interest in the metal shingle product that we're using. I think we submitted that to Adam. But again, it's basically a very simple interlocking 20-inch square galvalume metal shingle, which is it has a light sheen to it, and it's not reflective, but it has just a little bit of sparkle to it. So it's meant to be a very kind of a low-keyed material, but with just a really, really interesting and sort of unexpected texture. And I think that perhaps Rob may want to conclude our presentation.
Thank you.
I'm here if we're ready, unless you have other questions.
I do not. I think I'll reserve my questions and comments after the public if any are in attendance and wish to comment and speak now. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment? If so, please raise your hand and you'll be recognized. All right, well, seeing none, I will close the public comment portion of the meeting. And then at this point, deliberate, I guess, as zoning administrator. So I'm impressed. This is a great project. It is certainly a marker towards the future of what we're striving to achieve with the downtown plan. A lot of effort to bring it forward in this manner. And I want to comment also, it was given quite a bit of a review. I did view the concept review by the design review board and was pleased sort of the tone and character of the comments made by them. It indicated that they were very much supportive of the design and the responses that you prepared to their comments, I think were appropriate and thoughtful. I appreciate your taking time to do that. It's really important. They are design experts and I think provide important insight to help to make sure this and other projects in the city fit in terms of design and will be long-lasting elements of our community. So I think that was very worthwhile. I do have a couple questions. And I know in the presentation by staff regarding parking that we have no standards that will be applied in this case because parking is not required. But I would like to hear your comments about how you think the parking will function for your tenants, because it is an amenity. It is a resource for them. Can you display the parking levels and talk about circulation and size and your thought process of how that will ultimately be developed or finished for tenant use? And if you raise your hand, you'll be recognized.
This is Tom Robertson. Very quickly, David De Los Santos, who's at the hearing, could give an explanation of that, but it basically tries as much as possible to conform to the Santa Rosa downtown parking ordinance, but there are some exceptions with more compact spaces. And but I'd like David, if he wouldn't mind, to comment on that.
Hi, yes, David De Los Santos, principal with TLCD. With regard to the parking, I think the major, from a design layout point of view, we think it will work fine. We think that, I mean, the exceptions to the standards are in the drive aisle width, as Adam mentioned earlier in the presentation. I think they're maybe a foot narrower than what the city standards call for. We still think that there's sufficient room for head-in parking, people to negotiate and navigate through the garage. And then the other exception that we have here in an effort to provide as many parking stalls as possible for the tenants is we are skewing heavily on the compact size of the stalls. The parking stalls are predominantly compact in size. There are a few standard size parking stalls, but other than that, everything else is, I mean, the parking stall size themselves are to city standards. And we believe that the circulation, although a little bit narrower, will still function properly.
Okay. My next question is regarding consideration of alternatives to street landscaping on Riley. It's disappointing to see that there was infrastructure conflict or constraints to prevent trees planting there. What other options are in consideration to help soften that street, I would say, sidewalk experience along that building elevation? I think, I'll comment here, I think Humboldt is going to be great. You do a really good job there. But given the extra length on the frontage on that Riley side, what sort of landscape treatments could help there in lieu of the trees?
Hi, this is Christine again. So yeah, we've been considering some options. I think part of the ongoing discussion is like, what is the goal for Riley Street? Because there's not a specific plan for the street. There's just been some widening of the sidewalk to the north, and then we anticipate there'll be widening to the south. But there's no street trees currently on Riley, I think because it's so narrow. And even to the north where the sidewalk has already been widened, there's no street trees in that area. So it may be that we look at providing some raised planters either adjacent to the building. I hesitate to put trees in planters because we've done that on other sites and they just do not thrive. It's just, they just look sad. So I think, you know, if we can continue working with utilities, I don't know how far we'll get, but I would like to get some greenery there, whether it be some vining or, you know, raised planters adjacent to the building. It's something that we need to discuss further with the project owner regarding maintenance and so forth.
And Mr. Zoning Administrator, if I could add, some of the reason for the potential that there is likely not actually going to be trees on Riley is for fire aerial access requirements. So that also dictated kind of what they were limited to on this side. It is within the conditions of the Exhibit A as well to reflect that as, you know, as approved by the city engineer. But there are some restrictions with fire as well as just, so whatever those may be, I mean, it has to do with height, but if there is a potential for any sort of conditioning, I think we want to be careful on what it looks like so that they don't run into an issue if fire were to come in and say, actually, you can't do that.
I appreciate that, Adam. I understand. And that's a challenge with a project of this scale. There's always back of house operations. And when you have a double frontage, one of them is going to be the primary entrance, in this case, Humboldt, and the other one is going to be secondary. But yet this is an urban environment and both frontages are going to be very visible and exposed. So while I won't suggest a condition, I would really encourage and urge that careful thinking be put forward to see if there's architectural treatment or some type of landscaping that wouldn't conflict with fire aerial access, something that helps to make that pedestrian experience along that side of the street less stark. Let's see, there was also, I had a question about affordability. This project is subject to the inclusionary ordinance. And the developer can elect to include affordable units in the project or pay an in lieu fee. And I just wanted to hear from the team or the owner what the intention is in terms of how to fulfill the inclusionary ordinance requirements. I see Tom has his hand up. Nope. Yep.
I'll defer to Rob if he's ready to talk about this, but I can certainly respond to it.
I see Rob also his hands up. We can recognize.
Would you recognize Rob, please? Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Boy, I've been struggling with my connection the last 10 minutes or so. So I've been putting my hand up and I guess it just wasn't seen. So, our current plan is that the project is market rate, and we're intending to pay the fees that would be required for that as part of our program.
Okay. Well, we're certainly, both are equivalent means to help our resolve our housing issues here in the city. And but enough said about that.
Mr. Zoning Administrator, I could comment just a little bit further that the project is conditioned to comply with the inclusionary housing ordinance. I mean, it's inherent in the code. It's required whether it's conditioned or not, but they have the option of if they go full market rate, they pay an inclusionary housing fee, which goes to city funds for inclusionary housing projects, which is actively redistributed to other projects throughout the city. They can either provide on-site affordable. If they were to do on-site affordable, it's 4% for low income dedicated. So with 94 units, it's 3.87 residential units. So I believe you'd round up to provide 4 units of low income to comply with the inclusionary housing ordinance. Or if they were to elect for very low income, it would be 3%. So it would be 3 units dedicated to very low income. There's also an innovative approach. So there's a potential there to have a combination of in lieu fees and have one, say, I don't know, there's not many required here, but there are some innovative approaches that can also be taken. But typically we condition projects to allow for that to be completed on the back end. That's prior to occupancy, essentially. So that way they can dictate which fees are appropriate for inclusionary housing, or if they need to enter into a contract with the Housing and Community Services Department to provide on-site affordable units.
Thank you. And that was exactly what I like to hear in terms of how this project will help fulfill our housing needs. My next question is more mundane. Trash travel through the building. I do see you have chutes that go down to a collection room in one of the parking levels. And can you describe, am I correct to assume that trash collection will be occurred on curbside on Riley? It'll be taken out of the building. How's that going to occur?
This is Rob again. We're working with a trash consultant on how we're going to do that, but generally the idea will be to have a collection inside, and then when trash occurs, and we're not sure if we'll go with one time a week or twice a week, it will be collected on Riley, and we'll have somebody on staff that makes sure that the containers are on the street side on the right time.
Will they be bundled, or is it going to be loose packages that'll be put out on the street?
I think it's gonna, well, we haven't quite gotten there yet. We're still working with our trash consultant, but I think it's gonna be enclosed bins that will then be pulled, then be collected by the trash.
Kind of related and nearby, I see you have a bicycle storage room, which is great. Can you describe how a cyclist will get in and out of that room and which way they will go to the street?
Hey, David, I'd like you to take that one. I think you may be a little bit further along on that than I am. So go ahead.
Certainly, yes. The bike storage room is located on the northern end of the project, and there is a door that leads directly out to that side yard along the north side of the project. So the idea is that cyclists are able to come in, enter and exit the building without having to walk through the lobby to get to the bike storage area.
Would an alternative path to travel be available to go through the garage out the main entrance onto Riley?
At the moment, we have not provided an alternative, a secondary access point that way. We feel that, we were sort of focusing all of the tenant amenities towards the front door and thinking that they could take it out that way.
Yeah, you might consider that because it's coming off of Riley through that, if I'm reading your first floor plan correctly, you will have a garage door entering that parking area from Riley on the north side, and it looks like there's no wall separating the garage unless I'm reading your planning correctly. I would just ask for consideration of that alternative path. For a cyclist with a bike going through two separate doors, turning corners like that is rather awkward. The more direct path of travel will make it much more functional. So that's really it for me. I think, again, this is a very much needed project. Tremendous amount of design work's gone into it. The comments that were raised by the design review board were very minor. They're very supportive. It is a project that's consistent with the downtown plan guidelines for the use. It is an allowed by right use, and I think you've demonstrated not only good aesthetic design, but also functionality on the site. I would encourage you to look at how and work with development engineering services on a street treatment on Riley that could maybe get some more vegetation in there. Take a look at a bicycle access to your parking area off of Riley through the garage. I think it's more straightforward, easier. And then there is one question I have regarding the landscape design. Adam, is it not ordinary that we have a final landscape design approval by staff as a condition? And can we add that?
I'm sorry, the first part of that, can you repeat the first part?
I typically see final landscape design is reviewed and approved by staff. So I would add that condition.
We could add that, yeah. As obviously, so long as the applicant accepts.
We have some revisions to the plan already, so I think it's appropriate that the final, you take a look at it.
Okay.
And then, so I'll move forward now to approve the project with the resolutions submitted dated, is it March 23rd, Adam?
Correct. Yes. And I think we should probably discuss the Exhibit A.
And then, yeah, are there changes to the Exhibit A at this point, or you have submitted it?
They've submitted changes. The project engineer with the city is here, and so is the deputy director of engineering development services. So that's Jesus McKeegan and Gabe Osborne. I think I would like them to just verify that any changes, to accept any of these changes as provided by the applicants.
Does, and that's fine. Mr. Osborne, have you reviewed the changes the applicant's proposing?
Good afternoon, Mr. Zoning Administrator, members of the public. Gabe Osborne, Deputy Director of Development Services. Yes, we have reviewed the proposed changes from the applicant. We can work through those. Some of them are associated with Riley and the landscaping in that area. The others are fairly minor, and we can incorporate those changes or work with the applicant on a suitable means to move it forward.
So Exhibit A in the form presented is acceptable with those changes. Do we need to read those into the record?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Ross. As far as engineering is concerned, Exhibit A is acceptable with those changes. I will let Mr. Ross determine whether it should be read into the record.
So I think we have, I don't think that any of the changes to the Exhibit A are substantial enough to change any design elements, except those that are, except the existing conditions from the Exhibit A prior to the applicant providing a response, states that the street trees on Riley Street are one of these, that the street trees on Riley Street are subject to the approval of the, or whatever that may be, are subject to the approval of the engineer, city engineer. And
What condition or which provision is that?
Hold on one second. Let me pull up the Exhibit A.
I'm doing the same.
Mr. Zoning Administrator, if I may, while Adam is looking that up. Just for clarification, some of the requirements are fire related in the conditions, which are pulled directly out of the fire code. And I need to make it clear requested changes to those are a little more challenging to incorporate, essentially because the discretion is limited due to the fact that they're code requirements. So most of the engineering specific items where there is a little more discretion, we can provide flexibility, make it work. But there may be some fire code pieces in there that would require a more lengthy discussion with the fire department, a review of the code to determine if those can be changed or not. And one of the changes presented by the applicant was in that arena associated with width. So that would require the fire department's determination to decide whether changes could be made to that or not. And as I mentioned, it may not be able to occur because of the code ramifications.
Thank you. And so the action we're taking today with the March 23rd Exhibit A would have the fire conditions stand and not modified. It would be the applicant's right or duty to be able to work with that or seek an accommodation from fire who would be in the position to approve any changes to their conditions. As Mr. Osborne stated, that they may not. So let's see.
And then to follow up that condition, speaking of the Riley Street side is 53C, which, oh, I'm sorry, that's not the right one. That is one of them. I'm sorry, give me 1 second to just verify everything a little bit further.
Is the language that's been written in bold the changes?
No, let me share my screen and I'll show all the comments for the exam. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll down and kind of just show what they are. Anything from the applicant has a discussion on the side with changes. So this one, number 6, is improvements to Riley Street. So we have,
and those were accepted by Mr. Osborne as workable.
Correct. And then here's this one for number 11, which talks about the driveway apron.
Right.
Here's one that just adds a bit more clarification to it, accepted by air. And then fire conditions coming down here. So it would be this one here, this portion, 53C, which talks about the width of the street. And that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, the applicant has clearly reviewed and has commented, and will work with the fire marshal on those. Those are the conditions that stand unless the fire marshal authorizes a modification. Any modification that would result in a substantial change to the building as it's proposed in this plan set may trigger a need for a subsequent design review approval, depending on the magnitude of those changes. That'll be determined by the planning director. So with that, I will approve the project subject to the resolution findings and conditions of approval, including Exhibit A, that were prepared March 23rd, 2021. And with that, this project moves forward. And I conclude by saying thank you very much, everybody, for working so hard to get everything pulled together on what I promises to be a great addition to downtown. So again, thank you all for attending. And this concludes the March 25th. Is it the 25th? I can't see. Zoning administrator meeting at 6:24 p.m. Thank you again. Bye-bye.